Greetings and salutations. It is a colder day than I thought it was going to be. I almost was tempted to go to the mountains, but it's 46 degrees. I know people ride in cold weather, but on a bike like this, on one hand, this cold, dry air is really good for making power. Unfortunately, it being 46 degrees and being 25 last night, the pavement is cold as shit. It's horrible for making traction. So, big power, low traction, not a good combo. You'd rather have less power and way more traction. Or both. Now, ideally. Not in the cards. Then again, it is also, you know, February, so it's supposed to be like 57 and sunny. I think I should have worn my warmer gloves. I didn't wear my ones that have the Gore-Tex, windproof, waterproof. I've got some Alpine Star, I forget what they're called. Something stars. Dry stars, maybe? They are really good. Waterproof, windproof, really toasty warm. But then I can't feel the controls for shit. So instead I wore my normal gloves, and so now my hands are freezing, and I can't feel the controls for shit. Oh well. I got no music because I threw my Cardo in the trash, even though it was only like 6 months old. Thing was acting up. I just have the worst friggin' luck when it comes to comm systems. Finally got my camera shit sorted out. This one seems to be working really well. But I might have to go back to Cena. I went with the Cardo because they said it could interface with my camera and I could use the noise isolating microphone of the Cardo, Bluetooth it into the camera and get rid of wires and shit. And it would be awesome. So I'd have the camera recording road sound and noise. And then I would have really good audio of my voice and I could adjust the levels. It just never worked. So working with a wired lav mic. And that's it. No audio. So I might as well sit here and talk. So I'm going to stay down in town because as cold as it is here, it could be way colder up in the mountains. And on a bike like this, it's just not fun. You got to put it in like rain mode if you're going to go well in the turns, and you still got to worry about load tuck in the front. So warm weather will be here before you know it. These tires are really good, but these are kind of like summer tires. RS11s or whatever the hell they are. They're a street but borderline track day tire, kind of like a Q5 S. So great in the summertime. Won't last very long. The tread is already alarmingly low after only 700 something miles on the back. This thing likes to eat tires. We'll switch to Michelin Road 6s. I had them on a ZX14 and it can handle the power and torque of those just fine. On track at the Dragon, like, they're a brilliant tire, so. Had them on an MT10. I don't know that I ever put them on an R1. But, it's all the tire you need for most things, unless you're in advanced, running a race pace on track. It might get a little greasy, but for the road, those would actually be a better tire on a day like today. Those Pilot Road, whatever the Michelin does, they've got some secret sauce and voodoo they put into those tire compounds. But the optimal grip is at a much lower operating temperature. You don't have to get the tires to like 190. You get them to like 135 or something. And that's when they come into their own. So on the road, man, they are really good tires. By the time the warm weather gets here, these things will be gone. I'll probably have switched to those. But anyway, what else is going on in the world? Well, watch check. Got our TSOT race, the official timing device for MotoGP. figure I'm gonna ride my motorsport, my motorbike. I will wear my motorsport inspired, specifically motorcycle inspired Swiss chronograph. So I guess we'll talk about, let's see, there's a possible cool opportunity coming for me and the channel. And I can't really talk about the product. I can't really talk about, I'm not even going to say the company. I talked to the owner of the company, gave me a call from overseas, I will say that much. Not China. And they are in the motorsports industry. That's the only information you're going to get. But they have what could be a game-changing, a paradigm shift, if you will, in motorcycling. And I've been asked to maybe help make some videos and do some interviews and help them build a channel for their company and products. And then I would get to use some of the video to, help promote my channel and direct people over there. So I don't know where it'll go. No idea. All I know is I have immense respect for this company and their services and products and stuff. They are amazing. And just a chance to get to do something with them and maybe make a few shekels on the side. Yeah, that could be cool. And if their product is what they think it's going to be, and I have no reason to even think that it wouldn't be, knowing their reputation, it could be game-changing. Could be absolutely game-changing for our sport, for street riders and occasional track day folks. So that's all you get. No company name, no even other than it deals with motorcycles. That's all you're getting. I told them I wouldn't say anything about what they're up to. So we'll see where that goes. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll be able to make an announcement later in the spring, and we'll see how that goes. But very interesting opportunity. Nothing else, I'll have fun doing it, and helping out some really good people. And if that's all I get out of it, and hey, and it helps promote my channel, you know what, I'd still call that a win. But I think it'd actually be much bigger than that. So I got something tickling my ear where my ear speakers used to be, and I can't freaking get to it, and it's itching and tickling. That is going to drive me bonkers. Anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about politics, but it's going to be less about Trump and Democrat. It's just more about things in general and what things we should care about regardless of what party you're in. So DOGE is what we're going to talk about first. Now, there's a lot of people upset. Musk isn't. He's not an elected official. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Most of the people in government aren't elected. The big ones are the president, the House. The judges are appointed. A lot of the people that, you got your city councilman and this and that, but the people working in the permit office that are deciding whether you get your building permit and all that shit, the reality about his government, we tend to look at the president, we look at the House, we look at the Supreme Court, you look at the mayor, the governor. Yes, those are the figureheads, and they certainly wield immense power. But the majority of the government workers that have actual control and decision-making over your daily life and what you can do and what freedoms you can exercise and what things you have to pay, and, the IRS, all that kind of stuff, are unelected, faceless officials. You don't know their name, you never voted for them, but someone hired them, someone appointed them, and now they're in control of whether you can put a deck on the back of your house, or whether you can buy a gun, or whether you're getting audited for something stupid. And so, Trump is elected. Well, just take Trump out of it. The president is elected. And I saw someone from one of the White House staff giving a civics lesson to the reporter pool, the media pool there. And it was simple and to the point, and I think a lot of people just miss this. The United States president is the only elected official in the entire American government system that is elected by the entire country. Mayors are people in the city. Governors are people in the state. Your Senate and Congress are elected by people in the state, or even just people that live in a few counties or zip codes, because it's all done by census data in small local jurisdictions. The president is the only one that has, so you could win a huge mandate in DeKalb County, or Atlanta, but as far as the rest of the country is concerned, they're like, I didn't freaking vote for you. Like, you didn't represent California, you don't represent Texas. The president does. He is the only one that is elected by all 50 states. And when you have a president that wins the Electoral College, and he wins the popular vote, and he wins the large majority of the number of states, he's the one that actually has the national, across-the-board mandate to do whatever it was that people elected him for. He's the only one. And in order to do that, he has to elect cabinet members. He has to have agencies and appoint the heads of the agencies and the people that support what he supports. Because people elected him, whether Trump or Obama, it doesn't matter. They ran and said, if you elect me, I will do this. And the other guy says, yeah, well, I'm going to do instead, I'm going to do this. If the majority of the people vote for that guy, they voted for him to do those things. And in order to do those things, he is allowed and even obligated to appoint people and put people in charge of these various agencies that will carry out the wishes that he believes in, because that's what the people nationally voted for. This isn't a liberal or a conservative thing. This isn't a Trump versus Kamala. It's not right versus wrong. It's just how it works. Everybody votes on the president that they believe will do X, Y, and Z. Whether it's the border, whether it's taxes, whether it's reform, it doesn't matter. That's what they voted for. He's the guy that said he would do those things that everyone said they cared about. And so, he has not just the right, but he has the moral and legal obligation to deliver on that promise that people voted for. If he votes to grow and strengthen and rebuild the military, and he gets in and immediately cuts the military in half, he has gone back on his word, and everyone's going to be pissed, and they're going to vote him out because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So, whether you agree with what he voted, what he ran on or not, the will of the people spoke. And they said, this is what we want. And one of the biggest things was draining the swamp. And listen, this is nothing new. Gore and Clinton were talking about this years ago. They just didn't do anything about cleaning it up. Obama talked about it. He just didn't do much about cleaning it up. Frankly, Trump didn't do a whole lot the first time around about cleaning it up. But this time he is. And we're up to 50 degrees. Another 10 degrees would be awesome. My nose is starting to run from the cold. So he appoints people like Musk. Whether you like Musk or not, or you care about it doesn't matter. The guy is immensely successful. He's a bit autistic in his manner of speaking sometimes. I mean, he's got something on the spectrum. But you know what? A lot of super geniuses are socially awkward. But the guy is a mega genius. The guy is immensely successful. He understands business. He understands efficiency. And they're going and finding hundreds of billions of dollars of waste. And this is important, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or liberal. I'm not saying everything they cut is going to be something I would even agree with. But we've known since the 70s and 80s, there have been this isn't like, oh, we've known for years. It's not even, oh, we've known for decades. We have known for generations, half a century, about the absolute pork and waste and stupid spending that has gone on through all these whistleblowers and reports and shit going back to the 70s. $500 hammers, $1,000 toilet seats that the Department of the military has spent. Just stupid shit. And that adds up. And it goes into the national deficit. The national deficit is insane. We pay over $300 billion with a B, a third of $1 trillion a year. We spend just on the interest payment of that deficit. And the deficit grows every year, so the interest grows with it. We can't be $40 trillion in debt. There isn't $40 trillion in all of the United States and all of the companies. And I mean, that kind of debt, if it was called in and we had to pay it, could literally break the country and destroy it. Let's say you make, halfway decent money. Let's say you make $80,000 a year. If you had $1.6 million in credit card debt, what would that mean for you? Your entire paycheck, even if you're making $100,000, if you've got like hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt, your minimum payments and interests are going to obliterate you. And if you don't have the money, what do you do? Well, I'll just borrow some more to pay that. And it just stacks up and stacks up. And at some point, you go bankrupt. It is not sustainable. And you can say, well, tax the rich, tax the rich. The rich don't have that much money. The top 1% is already paying almost half of the entire federal tax bill. If you took everything that they have, I saw someone once break down, if you took all the American corporations, the sports teams, the NFL, WWE, all the 1%, I think they went as deep as the top 10%, and you took everything they have, not just their income, their wealth, their estates, their yachts, their deferred stock options, everything, and you cashed everything out, you didn't even fund the federal government for 1 year. And that's it. And the very engine that drives the economy and the investment and keeps us afloat is gone. And next year we're sitting there going, now what? We bought ourselves 9 months by eating the rich, and there's nothing left. They don't have anything to take. There are no more rich. Who now has to pay this multi-trillion-dollar budget every year? The poor? They don't have it. If they had it, they'd be paying more now. Poor don't pay taxes. The middle class doesn't pay the majority of the taxes, despite people repeating it. So these things matter, right? That we have to get things under control. And I'm very pro-military. I think we need to fund the military. It needs to be a big line item. We have to protect ourselves. We have to protect our neighbors and allies. Like it or not, we're the world police. And a lot of people might not like that, but you know what? Nobody else can do it. Nobody else is willing and able to do it. So if we don't do it, what does the world look like as it just descends into chaos and feudalism? And it's just how it is. But that doesn't mean I want the government wasting, or the Department of Defense wasting things. And when the Pentagon says, look, we get $850 billion a year, and we can't pass a single simple audit, we don't know where a third to a half of that money goes. When you've got the Treasury sending out checks to dead people, when we're like earmarking $50 million or whatever it was to pay for Iraqi Sesame Street or trans studies in Peru, like, we have homeless vets walking around, we have crime, we have all kinds of shit going on. Our kids can't pass basic math tests. I know someone will say, well, that's why we shouldn't cut the Department of Education. No, it's not about cutting. I look at it almost like, I don't know, I guess like boot camp in the military. before you can build the person back up into what you want them to be, you kind of have to tear them down, break down the walls, break down the bad habits, get them down to the bare essentials, and then build them back up the right way. You know, sometimes you can't just remodel the home. Sometimes you got to take it down to the studs and in some ways start over and do it right. Otherwise, you're just putting more and more spackle and more shit over the problem, and at some point the wall falls down. It's harder to do that the other way, but it's the right way. And so we are wasting so much money on dumb shit for other countries that we don't need to be sending them money. How do you look at a homeless vet who can't get the medical care and for his PTSD, and he can't get any kind of subsidized housing and things like that? A guy who got shot and lost an arm and, you know, fought for his country, and now he's living on the streets. And yet he opens, you know, looks in the paper, and we're sending money to Peru for sensitivity training for trans, and we're spending money on Sesame Street in Iraq and all this other stupid horseshit that we spend money on. How do you think someone that's in that position is looking at that going, this is what I fought for? This is why my life is shit? I came back emotionally fucked up, missing a limb, and I can't get the help I need from my own government that, you know, was my employer and that I bled for. But we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars on all these stupid things. And the people that are screaming, DOGE, oh my God, they're doing audits, Nobody's afraid of an audit. I mean, if you're a person and you're doing anything right, you're getting audited, yeah, it's a pain in the ass. But if you're a senator screaming about another branch of the government getting audited, I mean, come on. There's a reason why you're screaming about it. You're either part of the fraud or the waste or the corruption or a combination thereof, or you're benefiting from it. Must ask a really good point. A really good question. How do people that make $180,000 to $200,000 a year, they got to pay taxes on that? They're up in that range where they're paying higher tax brackets. They probably got nice homes and mortgages and all that stuff. How do these people get to be worth $5 million, $10 million, $50, $150 million, some of them? These are public servants making less than my wife and I make. And yet they're worth 10, 20, 30, 50 million dollars. How does that happen? I make good money. My wife and I combined, we're not 1%ers, but we're like 2.5%ers or something. I have to look at the latest numbers, but we're up there. Especially living in a state like Georgia. You know, we're living in San Jose. Yeah, we're not going to barely be able to afford an apartment on what we make. But, you know, living in Georgia, we do all right. But we're not worth $50 million, you know? Like, how does that happen? And people don't question it. These people are doing insider trading. They're investing in companies, or they have their spouse invest in companies. I don't know if they're pulling money from their political campaigns, but they give money to all these foundations and all these different groups that they're spending dumb, stupid amounts of money on. And you know that frickin' foundation or that entity that they're giving tens of millions of dollars to for some stupid study is kicking money back into their campaign so that they can get reelected and keep sending the government. I mean, everybody knows that this shit goes on in Washington, so why are we surprised when a guy like Musk, who has nothing to gain financially, I know I've seen people like, oh, you know, he's just he's going in to make himself more richer. The guy's got $400 billion. He's not coming for the $2,000 you paid in taxes last year working as a barista. Just shut up. He has nothing to gain other than doing the right thing. Or maybe, I guess, a personal gain for him would be if he can help turn the country around and get Americans to make more money and be more prosperous. I don't know, maybe then more people can afford to buy us cars. Like everybody does. There's always some semblance of self-gain in anything. But the notion that he's just there for a tax cut, the guy pays billions in taxes. He has more money probably sitting, falling down into between his couch cushions than any of us will ever earn. The notion that he's there to, somehow make more money is just retarded. Just stop. The guy, the saying used to be, has more money than God. He doesn't need your $3,500. that is not even a rounding error on his checking account. But if he brings in a bunch of eggheads and math whizzes and geniuses that are like, where's all this money going? It's required by law that any payment from the reserve in an amount over this has to have the purchase order number or the account number of where it's going to, and people weren't doing it. They're just sending money out here and there, and they're like, well, if it's a valid payment, you should be able to document it, and they can't. All these agencies are failing these audits because no one's ever held them accountable. These are the people that tend to be there regardless of who's elected. You got someone who's been working in administrative and is a higher up manager in one of these agencies, has been there for 27 years through 4 different presidents. He doesn't give a fuck. He's just doing what he does, and no one's ever held them accountable. No one's ever come in and said, this isn't your money. The government doesn't have its own money. The government doesn't produce any money. It doesn't create any wealth. Every single dollar the government has, it took from you, me, my dad. Everybody that works and pays taxes. And that money goes into a pool, and these people, I think once you get so much money in a pile, it just loses all perspective. You're like, whatever. I mean, all right, we wasted $50,000 there, we wasted $2 million there. It's just a drop in the bucket. The problem is enough drops add up, and all of a sudden you're like, it's half the bucket. And when you got one party talking about raising I guess I have to raise taxes. No. Spend less. I'm not saying don't fix roads. I'm not saying don't maintain bridges and don't clean water and things like that. But there is so much waste, and anybody who tells you that there's no waste, there's no fraud, and there's no corruption in government is a liar. Of course there is. They just claim that there isn't because it's their side doing it, and they don't want to stop doing it because they benefit from doing it. Oh my God, go. Jesus Christ, how many people? If someone... I made an analogy. If someone stands up, think of how ludicrous this would be. If someone stands up and says, listen, we know fraud happens, we know this shit goes on, we need to really put a clamp down on it, it's not sustainable. And someone's like, no, how is that really any different? Like with taxes, I think they just don't get it. But imagine if the cop, just change the topic. If someone gets up and says, listen, child sex trafficking is a real problem. It's horrible. It's inhuman. We have to put a stop to this any way we can. And someone stands up and says, well, hold on a minute. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And they start making excuses as to why you shouldn't get rid of pedophilia or rape or child sex trafficking. Your spidey sense would go off the charts, and you go, what the fuck is that dude up to? Like, why is he against getting rid of human sex trafficking? Right? So when someone stands up and says, look, we know that fraud and just waste happens, whether it's intentional, whether it isn't. We are hemorrhaging hundreds of billions of dollars of cash that nobody can tell us where it's going, or we know where it's going and it's not even in the realm of being justified. And someone goes, well, hold on a minute. Let's not be hasty. That person is benefiting from whatever that waste or that fraud or that corruption is. There is no reason anybody, regardless of your party, regardless of your income level, If someone just came up and said, should we waste or throw away $500 billion a year? Just basically set it on fire. It's basically useless. We're just going to take it and we're just going to get rid of it. And then next year we're going to tax you another $500 billion to cover it because we got to burn it again next year. Do you think anybody would go, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Keep doing that. No, nobody would. Unless you benefited from that. Or I guess maybe you just simply don't understand it. And you don't have any skin in the game because you don't really pay taxes. I mean, everybody says, I pay taxes. Most people that say, I pay taxes, don't really pay taxes. If you're making $40,000 a year, what are you paying? $3,000 a year? I mean, you're not paying a lot. You're just not. I see people that are making 40, 50 grand a year, and I'm not knocking people for I made 40, 50 grand at one point. Everybody did. You know, it's not to be elitist or I'm better than you because I made. It's not. It's math. But when you're at a certain income level and you look at the tax tables and what they spend and what they pay, and then you see, they get a tax refund at the end of the year, it's like, well, how much did you really pay? Between state, federal, and all that shit, wife and I are paying, I don't know, it's a lot. It's more in taxes, just for state, federal, and property. It's more than the medium gross family income in the U.S. And we don't get a tax refund. We still owe every year. And then you got someone like Musk, who pays more taxes in 1 year than I will, and probably in my entire working career. So it's all relative. I may pay more than someone else, but for that, every time that happens, there's someone else looking at me going, dude, you don't pay nothing. Comparatively. But if you're in that lower class, if you're in that 50% of working Americans who pay, think of this, of all the people that work in America, the bottom half, so 50% of the workforce, they pay a combined 2.3% of the entire federal tax budget. 2.3%. That's it. 50% combined. Less than 3% is what they pay. But those are most often the people that are like, oh, well, the waste isn't a big deal, because it doesn't hit you in the pocketbook. If they give you a tax cut, you don't think it's a big deal to get tax cuts, because when you don't pay a lot of taxes, you don't get a lot from a cut. I've used the analogy in the past of, when you go to Home Depot and they got 10% off everything in the store. That's what a tax cut is. They're not giving you anything. They're just saying, I'm not going to take as much as I would have charged you before. Last year you paid this much. You buy it this week, we're going to give you a 10% reduction. Well, the guy that buys a $20 hammer only saves $2. The guy who drops $35,000 on a kitchen remodel and new appliances is going to save $3,500. And no one thinks anything of it. But when you make it about taxes, suddenly the argument becomes, why does he get to save $3,500 and I only get to save $2? That sale is for the rich. Only the rich benefit from a sale. Yeah, they kind of do. In order to save more, you got to spend more in the first place. And the rich pay the most taxes. So any tax cut is going to disproportionately impact the people who pay the most taxes. It's going to favor them. How do you give someone a $3,500 tax cut who only, paid $1,000 in taxes in the first place? How do you give them a refund that's bigger than what they paid? Or how do you give them a cut, rather, that's bigger than what they put in the first place? You can't. So it's one of those things where you have to have skin in the game. And honestly, if you don't pay a lot in taxes, if you're one of the people that's just a regular schmo and, hey, whatever, you don't make a lot of money, I don't value your opinion on this as much because you don't have skin in the game. You're not really contributing. And so whining about the people who are, to me, is like, All right, you have an opinion. It just doesn't hold a lot of water, I guess. But I think waste, regardless of affiliation and nobody can say that waste is good, especially when it's to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars a year. How can that possibly be a good thing? And when someone comes in and says, look, we can pay for the things that we need to pay for, but you know what? If we're wasting all this money on stupid shit, not only does that cause taxes to be high, all this bloat and stuff, but it also takes money away from the things that maybe we should be spending more time on. Homeless, healthcare costs, things like that. Imagine what $500 billion of waste that we just terminate and dump back into the system on the things that we decide to keep that actually matter. We could probably eradicate homelessness. We could probably improve healthcare and bring costs way down. But you can't do that when you're spending money on Iraqi Sesame Street shit. And all these other things. And I know I use that one example, but go look up the current list of the amount of waste out there that they've uncovered in 6 weeks. It is staggering. It's horrible, and they're just scratching the surface. This is important. Money isn't everything, but it's what separates a first world country from a third world country. When you're a third world country, you don't have any money, you don't have infrastructure, you don't have roads, you have shit healthcare system with very little care, you have famine, you have starvation, you have worse crime, you have just people that are miserable. It takes money to invest in technology. It takes money for infrastructure. It takes money for transportation and educate, all these things. And if those things are important to you, then you got to get rid of all the fat and all the waste so that you can then look at your resources and say, you know what? We can actually give people back some of their own money, because it's their money, it's taxpayer money, and we can actually increase spending on education. We can increase spending in the healthcare or whatever. Maybe environmental stuff. I don't know. But you can't spend, there's only so much blood you can squeeze from a stone. And if you know, and we do, let's just stop the lying, stop putting on blinders and pretending it doesn't happen. When you know that we waste hundreds of billions of dollars every single year on stupid, crazy, undocumented, possibly illegal, if not at least immoral stuff that we have no business wasting money on. If we get rid of that, what if we can increase the spending on things that you actually care about? Sometimes less is more. You think about the things you could do around your house if you didn't have to make all those minimum credit card payments every month. And so if you got rid of all that stuff and got rid of things that don't matter so that you could actually put your money into the property or traveling or something, isn't that better? Why would, if it works on a personal level, it's money in versus expenses going out. Granted, the numbers are much bigger and maybe the logistics are more complex, but the economic principles are the same. You can't send out trillions of more dollars per year than you take in forever. You can't. And that's why when you look at the Green New Deal at AOC, they're talking about over 10 years, it's going to cost $96 trillion. We don't have that. We don't have a way to get our hands on that. We don't have a way to get a tenth of that. Now, some parts of the Green New Deal might actually be a good idea. Maybe better battery technology, which makes EVs even better, or, whatever. cheaper to cool our homes or heat our homes. Like, I'm sure there's things in there that the technology would have benefits, whether you forget the whole climate change thing, you know. But you can't just spend tens of trillions of dollars that you don't have. Where do you get that from? How do you ever repay that? DOGE is a good thing. I don't care if you're... I'm doing my best to not be political here. It's not about, being pro-Trump or Musk, whatever, anti-Biden or whoever. This is about basic fundamentals in economics. We all know politicians, we all say, greedy, corrupt CEOs. What, you think a freaking politician is any less greedy or any less prone to corruption and bribes and kickbacks and being self-serving? Give me a break. I would say the CEO is a hell of a lot more accountable because they seem to be able to get arrested more and kicked off the board than a lot of these politicians that nothing ever seems to happen to. But it's important regardless of what party you're in. If you're a Democrat, there's things you care about that maybe should be funded or increased funding. But because we're wasting it on dumb shit, you're not getting the dollars that you want. And you see your only option is, just raise taxes more. No. You get rid of the waste. You see what you actually have to spend money on and what makes sense and what doesn't. And see how much money you have then. You have no right to ask for more money when you can't even account for the money that's already been given to you. If you got kids and you give your kid an allowance and then you give him an advance on his allowance and he comes back and says, hey, I need another $100, Dad. Well, where'd you spend the other $100 I already gave you and advanced you? I don't know. Well, I'm not giving you more money until you know what I mean? It's like you can't even tell me what you've already spent your money on. And you're already asking for more. Anyway. Alright, we beat that dead horse. Waste is bad. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt to see what happens. See how much money is being wasted. I think it's going to be an eye-opener. They've already found hundreds and hundreds of billions in a month and a half. Let's see where it ends and then make a decision. And if you're mad about a cut being made in some area, ask yourself why. I don't know what else to talk about. I think the bike's coming up behind me. Had some guy today was claim he was faster on his 900-pound Harley up in the mountains than I could be on a sport bike. I was like, all right, let's meet up. But I get to film it and post it on my channel. Crickets. The usual 600 guys talking about, yeah, my 2001 600 did 170 GPS. I'm like, bullshit. You didn't even have GPS back then. That would give accurate. It's 24 years ago, dude. And your carbureted 600 back then might have made 99 horsepower at the wheel. Just stop. It's always the 600 guys. Always. They got these magical 600s that are faster than World Super Sport bikes. Yeah, Super Sport. Or faster than Isle of Man TT built race bikes. Well, yeah, I put a Yosh pipe and a filter and regenerated the carbs, and mine's faster than a current. Shut up. Just stop. So silly. People be silly. Everybody wants to flex. Thing is, if you don't have something flex worthy, like, would you show up at a really posh mall with a stack of $1 bills flashing, you know, would add up to be $77? It's a wad of cash, but it's $77, dude. Some of us make that in less than an hour. And you're sitting there waving it around, flexing. It's like, if you can't really, if you're gonna, I mean, flexing's kind of stupid anyway, but if you're gonna flex, have something flex worthy. If you're flexing with weak sauce, all you're doing is drawing attention to the fact that you don't have whatever it is you're trying to. Because anybody that has that actually has money, or has a real Rolex or a real car, or whatever it is, you know, they're gonna see right through you. They're like, oh, you fucking poser. So, anyway, yeah, another discussion I had with someone goes on the 44 Teeth video. The guys, well, two of them. One of them was the track day they did in the rain on a new V4S Panigale, which is an absolutely sick bike. And they showed that, you know, hey, we were significantly faster in the rain with the electronics. All the traction control and things cutting in did not slow us down. It let us push harder and be faster. But then you got these guys that ride old bikes. You don't need any of that. Just because it's newer doesn't mean it's better. Yeah, it does. A bike like this is on par with like a MotoGP bike from like 2004. You can't sell this to the public and go, here you go, with no rider aids and not expect bad shit to happen. But you just get all these just Luddites. Look, I'm gonna be 53. I'm not exactly a spring chicken, but I love technology. I like new stuff. Can I appreciate a classic? Yeah, I love a 67 Mustang or Corvette. Would I actually want to own and drive it regularly? Fuck no. A modern Camry would run circles around the damn thing. It's just, technology is a beautiful thing. Now you might argue, well, you know, there's something cool and raw about the golden age of, all right, whatever, that's nostalgia. But if you're talking in a quantifiable way, like, is it better? No. You might like it better because that's just your preference and you appreciate or like old things. But if you're trying to sit there and say, look, is this bike faster or better? Yeah, the new ones are faster and better. They just are. Like, that's how it works. So I always get drawn into those discussions. It's like, I wouldn't consider riding this thing with all the shit turned off. And you get someone that says, look, as long as you drive offensively, you don't have to worry about getting in an accident. Because we're talking about whether you should wear gear or not. He's like, a hoodie is fine for gear. What? What are you talking about? Well, just drive offensively and then you don't have to worry about crashing and it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. I'm like, am I being fucking punked? Like, really? There's no way. This guy could blow the turn and be on the cell phone and go right in the front of me. It's like the idea that, oh yeah, as long as you just, you know, as long as you just stay away. Yeah, situational awareness is probably the biggest thing. But it doesn't mean that, like, that's all there is to it. Anyway, I got nothing else to talk about, so we'll talk to you guys later. I think we can if we can turn